locked away in an old storage area were a set of rare, expensive, and ultra-light wheels. They used to be everyone's favorite thing about my car, but here they sat, practically rotting away. The dark chrome coating that made these BBS RK so attractive didn't last more than a few years. I was determined to bring these wheels back to life without spending thousands of dollars. You get to see how I did it. Here's what we need to get started. Some degreaser, a few types of primer, 2 cans of our dark base coat, 2 cans of our silver coat, and 2 cans of clear. We're also going to need Dupli-Color prep wipes, sanding materials, tack cloth, gloves, eye protection, and masks. The original coating was too difficult to sand manually, so I sent the wheels to Dan at Atlas Media Blasting. Dan stripped them down to bare aluminum using fine sand-like beads. This gives us a perfect starting point. Before we apply any primer or paint, we need to get the wheels spotlessly clean. A little simple green and a soft mitt help clean every edge. After rinsing, we should let them air dry. Do a final prep using a tack cloth to get rid of any dust. This self-etching primer I'm using has acid in it, so time to break out the goggles and mask. Make sure you're working in a well-ventilated area. Apply 1 or 2 even coats to the bare metal. This primer will bite into the metal, creating a glue between the metal and later coats. Since the media blasting took the wheel down to a casting texture, it's going to be tough to get a completely smooth finish. I use some filler primer to fill in the rough surface, and then in the next step, we'll sand it down just a little bit. These are difficult wheels to paint because there are so many edges to them. After first pass, I laid down the wheels and looked for any green areas that I had missed. Go ahead and sand down the filler primer coat. I like to use these 3M sanding blocks because they last a long time and can get in those tight spaces. You could go smoother if you wanted to, but Dupli-Color recommends using 320 grit. So now I'm going to use another piece of tack cloth to get rid of all that sanding dust before I put a second filler primer coat. You could also wash the wheel and wait for it to dry, but as you can see, it's already getting dark. Here's our wheel after the final coat of filler primer. We're using the Dupli-Color prep wipe to remove any traces of grease before applying our first base coat. So using Dupli-Color's high performance wheel coating, you want to start off painting all of the curves and corners. This is a very difficult wheel to paint considering all the spokes. I turn the wheel frequently to make sure I got every inch. You can paint the inside of the wheel if you want. After you get a solid light coat, wait for it to dry, and then repeat this step. So here's what 2 coats of graphite look like. Why didn't I just use 4 coats of silver? Well, I sprayed a couple of samples and silver by itself was too bright for my car. By having this darker coat, I can get a slightly darker silver like you see here. And I'm using light, frequent coats until I get a nice, even finish. Okay, so here's a final result before clear coat. A silver with a little hint of gunmetal behind it. Considering the rough starting point on the wheel, I was happy with the smoothness of this finish. If the paint seems dusty, make sure you're spraying perpendicular to the surface. Now we're wrapping it up with a nice medium wet coat of clear. I started out with a light dusting, just like in the previous steps, and then started moving the can a little slower to get that wetter coat. Again, I tried to keep the can as close to perpendicular to the edge as possible. After 2 medium coats of clear, we're done. I went over to TireRack.com and ordered some new wheels and then had them shipped to the highest rated installer in my area, which just happened to be German Auto Specialist. I guess it was fitting since BBS is a German company. They did a really great job not damaging the wheels and even let me film the process for you. I let an inexperienced person install my wheels 2 years back, and I was furious when they left 2 gashes on the face of the wheel, so choose wisely. After sliding the tire around the rim, Tim flipped the whole assembly and then filled it up with some air. With some quick hands, he installed the valve and then took the wheel over to the balancer. If you buy wheels and tires as a package, they usually do all these steps before shipping them to you, so you can just bolt them right onto the car. It's been almost 4 months since I've installed the new tires and refinished rims, and here's how they're holding up. Color's solid, and it's nice to have that deep dish look again. Now, many of you will start with a stock painted wheel. If that's the case, you only need to wash, sand, rewash, and then apply your Dupli-Color paint. Also, you'll probably still have the tires mounted. I recommend purchasing a set of index cards to protect the tires from the paint. Here's an example from Jamwang, a member on the clubrsx.com forums. Be sure to visit www.autohow.tv for more great how-tos and bonus info related to each video.